Hi folks, you're with Tassus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about, I guess, climate change is the overarching story here. But I've seen a number, including today, a number of alleged studies where children in countries are polled, and I do say alleged, by the way, polled where they say they've never been more anxious, or children are particularly anxious and never been more anxious, according to the pollsters at least, about the future. So they're saying that they're very concerned, frightened even for the future, and especially young girls break down and cry because the world's going to end in the next 5 minutes, and all the animals are going to die, and so on. So that's the thing. Now, I guess. Let's assume accept these things on the face of it, and say, all right, then I don't doubt, by the way, there are a lot of anxious children in schools. They're being plied with the most outrageous propaganda, and I see this from sort of the children of friends of ours that are even in mid to late high school or college, that sort of thing, where you think they'd be starting to grow out of it, but in fact they're not. They're just as concerned about it as the polls would suggest. So I'm sure there is some credence in what the polls are claiming, that the children are in fact anxious and frightened for the future. And look, if you've been told since kindergarten by activists posing as teachers that the world is going to end, then you probably would be nervous. There was an element of, certainly when I was growing up, there was an element of this nuclear Armageddon sort of scenario. It probably had a whole lot more credibility than the climate change scare does, but nonetheless. But there's a few things that are sort of interesting here that are probably worth covering. So. And it's called eco-anxiety, by the way. That's the new buzz. And again, there's little messages in here which I'm sure are going to really pick up pace soon. Is that young children have to lecture the old people about climate change. If you're older than 50, you're just too dumb and stupid and ideologically corrupt to not see the new enlightened world that the children have, where they understand the dangers, and they uniquely they understand the dangers of climate change. But you straight white male dumb fuck, you don't. And the more sophisticated 11-year-olds, they're all way more sophisticated than adults, and people in their 50s and 60s, they're going to lecture you on climate change. And I don't think that's far off, and I think it'll be compulsory. Yeah, you want your retirement pension paid or your food stamps, you old straight white male, well, you go and get lectured by 11-year-old morons about climate change. If you don't go, you're going to starve, motherfucker. So anyway, let's just have a look at this. There's a few things that are interesting here about the children being terrified. And it's obviously a premeditated propaganda play. I'm terrified about climate change. Why are the adults that tell you climate change is going to end the world? Why is what they say more important than adults who say that climate change is not going to change the world? Why do only the doomsayers have to be believed? So, the kids will come out with lines like, well, the science says, and of course that's a line they've been given by the propagandists. They don't even know what the fuck that means. The science says, what does that even mean? They don't know. Now, some of them may come up with, well, all the scientists say, okay, well, have you heard of, scientists such and such and so, and another one, have you heard? No. Okay, well, have a look at their work. They're ones that say that climate change is not an issue. Now, you can believe what you want to believe, but allow, scientists, if anything, are supposed to allow reason to percolate to the surface. So let's have a look at those scientists that say that climate change is not a thing. and they haven't been given any alternative position on this. They've only, assuming they've any scientists' names or whatever have been mentioned, they'll get things like, and the world's leading scientists have said, studies have shown, and that sort of thing. So they don't tell you that it's radicals screaming, lesbian activists that are the so-called scientists. That's not told to the kids, assuming they'd even understand the ramifications of that. But so they're only given one side of the story. No dissenting voice, not a single dissenting voice or opinion is allowed, and they've never looked at one or even heard of one. They're just told the science is unanimous, and they accept that. But again, why do they accept the claims that the science is unanimous, yet they're not inclined to believe claims that there is still a wide range of views in the science? And why will they only accept the doomsayer position? And that's because they've been, beaten over the head with nothing but the doomsayer position since kindergarten. Now, the other thing is that they're being taught, trained, and brainwashed to be activists. So there's certain things in the world you can change by being an activist. There's other things you can't change. For example, you can't change mass migration. And if you do want to change it, that makes you a Nazi. So you can't change that. You can't change a lot of black and brown peasants coming to the West, artificially dampening down wages. You can't change that. You can't protest about it. You can't placard away with it. There's nothing you can do about that. That is just set in concrete, set in stone. It's accepted. That's how it is. Nothing you can do about that. What about the current crop of modern day politicians getting filthy rich out of sleazy real estate deals with offshore Chinese goons and all that sort of thing? Can you do something? No. To the extent you're even made aware of it as a child, there's still nothing you can do anyway. That casting concrete, nothing can be done. What about China and India combined producing more pollution? China and India combined producing more pollution than the rest of the world put together. Is there something that can be done about that? No. It's only white countries that have to be brought back into line. The Chinese and Indians, that they produce more pollution than the rest of the world, irrelevant, to the extent, again, even that the kids are aware of it. And if they are made aware of it, it's like a fact they can't compute. No, it's like a robotic thing. No, I've been told that only white people are bad. No, only white people. No, they're brown people. No, I can't accept that. And if I do accept that brown people are doing it, then that would make me a racist. If I'm a racist, it would make me a fascist. If I'm a fascist, it would make me a Nazi. If I'm a Nazi, it would make me Hitler. So I can't even go down that road anyway. No, only white people can be bad. But you're a white person. Oh, yeah, but it wasn't my fault. It was the older white guys that did it, not me. I'm the new generation that's going to hold those older white guys to account because they're the Nazis, not me. Oh, okay. All right, you got that. So can't do anything about inflation and rising prices. Can't do anything about the offshore property investors buying thousands upon thousands upon thousands of residential properties, putting rents and mortgages out of the reach of 85%, 90% plus of the population. Can you do something about that? Nah, to the extent they even know about it. So what about bringing all the black and brown people into the West, which means they consume far more electricity and energy than they did in the countries they come from, which creates more carbon, which creates more climate change, which is more of a problem? Surely that's an issue. No. It's still only white people do it, but all these black and brown people coming in, they're now living a lifestyle that gives them, so they produce far more carbon. No, can't compute, cannot compute. So they can't seem to do that. But if you don't want brown and black people to come to the white countries, that makes you an evil Nazi fascist. But they're creating more carbon. No, only white people can be bad. Only white people can be bad. Does not compute. So they're being told that they can be uniquely activist only in certain areas, but not in others. So they can really change the world's climate by protesting in countries that make up such a tiny proportion of the world's carbon emissions, assuming even carbon emissions are the bad thing that's claimed. But let's assume for the moment that claim has some semblance of even micro reality. Then they're saying that a place like Australia, 1% of the world's emissions, that if radical activism in Australia is going to change the world, and kids are taught that. They're not told, but well, actually Australia only does 1%, so no matter what Australia does, it won't make a difference. They're not taught that. And if you do raise that with children, they sort of, again, but we have to show leadership. We have to show leadership for the world. Why? Why do we have to show leadership? Well, if you don't think we have to show leadership, that makes you a Nazi. There you go. We're back to Nazis again. So they're uniquely told that they can, there are certain things they can influence by their activism, and they must be activists. The world is going to end if they're not activists. So with climate change, so maybe some kids are out. Well, some kids are. Well, if climate change is such, why don't the people in charge do something about it? If it is as bad as is claimed, why are these people in charge buying waterfront properties when we're supposed to be underwater in a few years? That sort of thing. But those questions don't sort of come in. And I'm sure there's tactics in the class. Well, I'm not sure there are tactics in the class that if someone asks a difficult to sort of get your head around type question like that they're embarrassed and humiliated in front of the class, accused of being a Nazi or something. Are you a racist, little Johnny? Is Billy Bob really a closet fascist Nazi? And so on. So I'm sure that sort of stuff goes on, but well, it does go on. But there's no dealing with the actual facts or realities of the case. So well, why haven't the people in charge done something? Well, it's because they're straight white male Nazis. That's it. Straight white males, Nazis. And the two are pretty much the same. If you're a straight white male, you're a Nazi. I mean, there's nothing much in it. So they're going out there. So the kids are encouraged and brainwashed to go out and become activists because they've got to stop climate change. And because the white people cause climate change, then it's racist. So they have to stop racism. Because it was straight white males that did it, then they have to fight against misogyny. And because straight white males are always trying to keep everyone else down, then you have to fight for against transphobia. So and really, but your overall objective is to stop Nazis. Well, who are the Nazis? How do we know who the Nazis are? Straight white males. Got it. There you go. So they're out to re-engineer society and encouraged to do so. And I see it all over. I'm seeing it everywhere in, particularly places like human resource departments, government departments, any sort of group or department that allocates rewards or pay rises or benefits. I mean, this is all done now on the basis of social engineering. And has nothing to do with any form of merit. It's the merit of stopping the Nazis. That's the only meritorious thing they can do. So when it comes to inflation, importing peasant workers, offshore investors buying up all the real estate, corrupt politicians getting rich on sleazy real estate deals, all that sort of stuff, they can't do anything about that. That's just casting. You can't do anything. You can't placard wave. You can't protest that. You can only protest these things. And the things that they're encouraged to protest about and become activists over are all the things that degrade and humiliate and undermine the cohesion of Western society. And all the things they're not allowed or told not to worry about or told that there's nothing they can do about, they're the things that also undermine, degrade and humiliate Western society. So it's very much a globalist playbook on how to degrade and undermine society. So we're looking at, if you think about over the next 10 to 15 years, pretty much all the the supervisory middle management roles, all these sorts of things, all the little sort of lower end box ticking, social technician type roles, they're all going to be occupied by people like this who've been brainwashed to see the world in this perspective. So, and I've seen this, recently, where there's a government department that if just by deciding not to hire the best qualified person who happens to be a straight white male for an ordinary job. I mean, this job, would pay maybe just on or about the average wage. They're doing something good for society. They're stopping a straight white male. They're stopping Nazis. That's what they're doing. They're stopping Nazis, and that's good. But you're hiring a black lesbian who's got an IQ of 80 who can't possibly do the job. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because we're creating a new social order and we're creating a social nirvana. But the important thing is, above all else, the important thing is we stop the straight white male Nazi. That's the important thing. And we've been taught that since kindergarten. You've been with Tassos today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.